Colvin,
Here.
Samantha Davis,
Present.
Sarah Moses,
Present.
Victoria Newport,
Here.
Jeremy Olson,
Here.
Valerie Payne Hernandez,
Here.
David Seymour.
Pledge of allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, this time is for public participation and recognition. And we will be recognizing 20-year service award.
Sarah?
Hi, everyone. We recognized all of our 20-year service award employees and staff at our last meeting. And perhaps you could say you saved the best for last, but we accidentally left Lori Diedrich off, and she is amazing. And we feel horrible about that mistake, but we just couldn't let another meeting go by without acknowledging her and her dedication to the district. So Lori, we just want to say thank you and congrats on 20 years. Cindy, do you have a little personal note to add?
Oh, I definitely agree. She's been awesome. She's kind of been taking care of a lot of things while we've been out. We all have, and totally appreciate everything she does. And she's really worked her way through the district. Has a great career path, and we love her in the department. She's very confident and looking forward to another 20, right?
Thank you, Lori.
Yeah.
Thank you to the fabulous Lori
She on?
Dietrich and your 20 years of service.
Well, she might be watching.
Okay, next subject is public comment. Members of the public who wish to speak to the board should complete a request card or send an email to the board president prior to the meeting. This section of the meeting will be reserved for comments from the public. All comments should be limited to 3 minutes. Criticism of individuals is not important. Okay. Board committee reports and correspondence, anyone?
We had an FFAC meeting last week, and it was really more of an update of where we're at in our going along with our district. If Cindy wants to add anything, and we will meet again in June.
Are you guys doing that on Zoom?
Yes, we did. We did it on Google Meet.
Mm-hmm.
It really was an update just on a lot of things related to COVID, and financial impact, potential impact going forward, what our reintegration plan may look like, and various plans that school districts may have coming back. A lot of good questions have been submitted to the administration. There was a very good exchange, good meeting. Cindy, anything to add?
No, it was actually a very good meeting. Just was able to give a really nice overview of what we've been doing and what we've accomplished. Honestly, I feel over these last few weeks, and have really stepped up in terms of keeping our kids involved and educated under really extreme circumstances. So it was really a good meeting. It really was.
I think the week before that, I also attended a district improvement committee meeting, and again, that was a lot of brainstorming what the fall could look like. And there will be subcommittees, I believe, that are going to work on what that's going to look like.
Thanks. Hey, I have a point of order. You brought this up as far as plans and stuff having to do with COVID virus, and that's in the FFAC meeting. So I don't know where this is going to come in, but I definitely would like to have an idea going forward. I know that we're in transition here, but I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's happening, huge things that are happening here, both for summer and for fall. And as far, we're really up in the air as far as fall is concerned, but I know that there's planning being done. And I think as a board member, I definitely would like to be privy to some of the things that are going on in these meetings, your meetings, you've got to be having meetings having to do with, here's plan A, plan B, plan C.
Can I address that?
Yes,
Because it's clearly not just our district. And so, for instance, tomorrow morning, I'll be sitting in, I sit in on a weekly superintendent meeting with all the county superintendents and with, of course, Amanda Christensen from the ROE. And we're starting to have those conversations because when I say we're all trying to build this together. And, you know, and we're still waiting on guidance from the Illinois Department of Public Health. And, you know, right now they can't project us out that far. So what we've been directed from ISB to do, from the state board, is really develop 3 plans. A plan that would include students coming back to school at regular time, or possibly even delaying the start of school to after Labor Day. Another plan was suggested to start school actually August 1st.
what was that?
There's another hypothetical plan to start August 1st.
August
To try to get children back to in-person learning, with the idea that there's going to be probably another peak in November, December, sometime in the fall. So that's plan A. Plan B is some sort of hybrid plan that would include, if we were directed that we can only have, we'll say 15, 16 kids in a classroom at any given time. So we would potentially have and split the children up. We have an A day and a B day. So the A kids come on Monday, Wednesday, the B kids come Tuesday, Thursday, you either rotate Friday or Friday's an e-learning day. So still nothing, it's all very much in draft. And plan C is we get to that point, and we're still in full e-learning. And then the question is, we have to go back and really work with our staffs and say, what were the lessons learned? And with our parents and with our kids. What were the lessons learned with e-learning? That those areas where we can improve, the things that we can do better, that we can make this a more fulfilling experience for our children. So really those are the 3 plans that we're trying to work around. And as Samantha pointed out, the district improvement team has been given that task to start working on what those plans may look like. Tim is working with the district improvement team as well as others. And I don't know if they'll have an update by June 2nd, but maybe by the 2nd June meeting, have a little more skeleton plan put together. But those are kind of the 3 areas that we're all looking at. Of course, if they limit the number of students who can be together at any given time, transportation is a challenge. You know, before school, you know, playgrounds, you know, how, you know, kids naturally want to congregate and be on the swing and all the, trying to keep middle school, high school kids to social distance, that would be a challenge. You know, lunchrooms, how do you do lunchroom? So a lot of built-in challenges with Plan B, that, you know, AB day or ABC day. And there's, Kim Lyle had shared with us a plan that another district had kind of put together on a lot of options for that B plan. You know, some people have suggested you do morning, afternoon. Well, with your younger kids, you could consider that, but then you run into more transportation costs. And really, is that, you know, what kind of impact is that going to have on the parents? So if we go, you know, again, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is an e-learning or catch-up day, and Thursday, Friday, you know, there's a lot of different possible plans, but we're going to have to work through that, not only with just our teachers and all of our staff, but also with our parents to say what's going to work best. Because if we're at the point where we're allowing kids to come back to school, even in a split shift, then that means parents are going back to work. And so now we're going to have, you know, on the off days, our daycare is going to be packed. So again, there's still a lot of unanswered questions, and we've received, and I'm not being critical of ISB or the Illinois Department of Health. Right now, we haven't received any specific guidance on reopening schools. They're working on it, but we haven't received anything yet.
We're having the same things at community college level. I've been in on a couple of meetings with that, and I tell you, they're fumbling around in the dark working with that as far as half the class coming back, and these are relatively adultish sort of kids, not completely, but I mean, to have third and fourth graders doing that kind of thing is just a completely different sort of situation. So as a consequence,
And kids need this they need the social interaction.
oh my gosh.
I've spoken with several of our teachers through email. Our teachers desperately miss their children.
Right.
They miss their kids.
And
And
likewise,
the kids miss their teachers, and
Yeah.
the kids miss each other.
right?
So, hopefully we can, get back, but, early on, we said we're building the plane as we fly it through e-learning. We're waiting on the directions for the next plane.
I don't know if we're gonna get any.
And I attended district improvement committee and the class size advisory task force. And I can honestly tell you that in both committees, this discussion is happening, specifically how Jamie is speaking of it. And there's a lot of ideas pretty much going around about, how this will look. I do know more specifically, correct me if I'm wrong, Christy and Tim, because I asked these same questions, Jeff. There are specific subcommittees that are meeting and specifically creating contingency plans to address all of the challenges and barriers that we may or potentially may face with each contingency plan. So I feel like our district is working very hard, even over the summer, granted, this is time that teachers usually use to plan, curriculum and re-energize, but, they're going to be using it to potentially put together these plans that, we won't know for sure which one we'll go with until later on in the summer. Is that pretty much
Yep.
covers it, I would say. If there's anything that you want to add, Tim or Christy, I think that pretty much covers it. That's really the conversation that occurred in district improvement. I think another concern is the social emotional, right? And I'm very, very excited that our district is really looking at, how to support kids as we transition them back to school, because now every child in America will have endured some traumatic experience with COVID, right? Whether it's directly or indirectly. So I think there's a lot of conversations that are very positive. I think our district is working really hard. Our teachers are working really hard. And certainly, like Jamie said, really learning about what didn't work with e-learning and trying to enhance and improve it all around.
Well,
There's five.
Can you
Right now, there's
move
five
Jim
different
up?
teams that are, they're focused, at the three different grade spans, so the elementary, middle, and high school.
thank you.
Those three are focused primarily on, the social emotional and the trauma support that we can help with the kids. And then we've also got, the first subcommittee actually met today. And, I don't want to get in the weeds on this, but they met today, and Christy facilitated that one as far as that medical committee that focused specifically on procedures for students and staff members who, hypothetically, if they were to contract COVID while we were back at school, what would the exact medical procedures look like, and what are the different safeguards that we can put in to prevent that moving forward. So that one's more of a procedural and logistical committee, and then there's a separate team that right now is on hold until after this week, after the school year meets, lean a little bit for the ISB guidance that Jamie had talked about, because we are planning A, B, C, and D right now, but at this point we're not in a terrible rush to publish a plan. When we can wait and take advantage of the ISB guidance that we know is coming, we want to take advantage of that.
So, I have my question. If we're gonna speak up, if we're back at school, like normal, and this COVID thing is out of the way, we're all set for that, right? We don't have to do anything crazy.
as of right now, we have not discussed, or brought to the board any changes if we're normally back to school.
So did we already approve the calendar for 2021?
Yes,
We
we
did,
approved it in December.
Okay, somebody was emailing looking for it today. I thought it was out for someone, but, so we're just, that's gonna be it. And this is all contingency, right? If we're not
Yes.
back. Okay.
Any other correspondence?
Well, I have a logistical question. It is, I'm looking to everyone to give me this point of view, and Sam, you've been to a couple of these things apparently. So if I were to sit in on a group that is working on this, who would I sit in? Where would it, and could I sit in? I mean, I'm not assigned to that particular committee, so
Which committees are they on?
can't tell you.
I know we just have to be careful of OMA because I believe there's two of us. I know Val and I are on District Improvement Committee, and then on FFAC is Jeremy and I.
Right.
FFAC is normally an open meeting here in person, but with the Google meeting, it complicates it a little bit because then potentially we could be not following OMA. Three of us are on there talking.
Sure.
So.
I just want to get
yeah.
informed somehow. I want to be informed as to what the thinking is and how the genesis of what we're thinking about, rather than coming back at it later on.
Right.
But, when July walks around, then we say, here's what we as committees, these three committees have decided we're going to do for fall. I don't like that. So I'd like to be party in, at least informed information-wise into the process so that I know what's going on. Because I do know this, I do know that we don't have the opportunity of giving kids what they had at midterm. We won't have that this time.
Right.
So that is definitely,
Can I make a suggestion?
yes.
Sarah, can we just add to the every 2-week agenda, a quick update, for us?
Yeah,
Every 2 weeks would be enough, but I mean, that's. we're not
And Jeff,
having
we can touch base about what committees you're in, Jeff, and then which ones you can attend that are would not be violating.
No, I would like the update too, I'm just saying.
Just leave it as a standing agenda.
Just give it as a
for
standing
some-
item.
You mean like from District Improvement Committee, like from Kim Lyle, it will be.
Right.
If that's where it's gonna come from, yes.
Sure.
That would be nice. I think that'd be worthy of.
Good
And they
idea.
can just stay on the agenda
I agree.
every 2 weeks.
Yes, because I have lots of questions. I know that when, in my school, we did not have you get what you got at midterm. People did not, they got credit, they had an option of credit or no credit. If they didn't do what they needed to do, they were just given no credit. But, so there's a lot of things getting kicked around, and there's a lot of thoughts in my environment as to what to do in that situation and what's gonna happen in the fall. So I definitely would like to be party to it.
Well, I do want to point out though, from a grading perspective, that was handed down to us from the state board.
I know that.
Now, and at this point,
Thank you.
again, at this point, there's multiple committees going on through the different state organizations. One of the committees is discussing this very thing, that if we are back to e-learning, what will the grading policy look like? Because last time it was no harm. And their purpose was because, some students don't have access and there's inequity across communities, let alone the state.
Right.
So I know there's a committee that's working on that specifically, that if we are e-learning, are they going to leave it to local control? What is all that going to look like? So there's, again, and we say this, and I don't think it's overused. We are in such unique times in education. We're trying to do things and create things that we've never done before, and policies that we've never had before. So that's why I'll continue to say and reiterate, I'm not being critical of the state board when I say we haven't received anything. They're wrestling with this just as we are locally.
Right.
I can only imagine. That's
I actually watched part
It's a big deal, and I don't criticize, sorry.
I was watching Dr. Ayala actually 2 days ago, and she was explaining how there's a lot of, like to Jamie's point, there's a lot of things that the state is trying to look at, one of, a lot of unknown factors right now. So I think that they have contingency plans they're working on. And I think that what Dr. Ayala was saying is how they plan to share this information out. But it is like Jamie said, then there's just not a lot of information quite yet because they're relying on data and trying to see how, where we will be in terms of the phase, right? At what phase we will be when school gets closer. So I think there's a lot of information, but I think board correspondence is a good time for us to have these discussions. But, to your point, Jack and Jeremy, maybe something when we get closer that someone can present about how we're going to proceed, I guess. That would be beneficial for the entire district and for the community, really.
We'll leave it as a standing agenda item.
Okay,
I think that'd be great.
perfect.
Thanks, Val.
Any other reports? Okay, so we'll move on to the non-business consent agenda. So it is recommended action that the Board of Education approve the non-business consent agenda items A through G. Is there a motion?
Actually, I would like to, especially in consideration of our call today. So with regard to our Director of Human Resources conversation, I felt that she was very open to having conversations with some of the board members. Given that no direct supervisor was able to interview her, I think she even had a little bit of trepidation. And I think in the path of good governance, that I would move that we take that specific agenda item and shift it to our meeting 2 weeks from now, and allow any and all board members who would like to reach out and contact her directly, and allow her the ability to hear from us, to talk about the future direction of the board, the future direction of our district, who we might be looking for in terms of the type of candidates, since we obviously is moving on. I think that's all positive things that really can glue us to this candidate, and I think it's worthy of the time for us to do our due diligence for the district and for this candidate. So I would move that we discuss and potentially move that to the next meeting, and then allow us to, at our discretion, set up a call.
So
Be
point
Be
of
specific.
order, are you asking to remove this item from the
Yes.
agenda?
Yes, and then move it,
And place it on the next agenda?
correct.
Okay, is that a motion?
Yes.
Well, make a specific, which one, which item?
Oh, yes, it's the item number, or letter rather,
It's item C.
D.
it's in David. Okay,
And move it to,
the next official board meeting.
Can I ask a question? This has to be a motion and then.
This
seconded?
has to be a motion with a second and then a vote to remove an item.
So we
I
can
second.
discuss before.
So a motion's been made. For it to move, there has to be a second.
second.
So then we can discuss.
You can discuss.
Okay, so discussion. So Jeremy, did you have something to say?
Well, I just wanted to ask because I want to make sure we're wary that it's not our role necessarily to hire a cabinet member. And so what exactly are you looking to get out of? Because this was a process that we as a board agreed to.
Well,
And
there's some, it
okay.
was a closed session meeting, obviously, when we agreed to it. And I think there was a little bit of confusion as to the process in now talking to Sarah about it. I had a call with her, and Sarah was this earlier today. But the process isn't normal anyway, because typically it would be Jamie that would be making the hire.
Right, but we
And
did
you'd be getting
agree to the process. We all agreed to the process.
And what I'm saying is, there's no one who has accountability for this hire that she's gonna be reporting to. And if we don't have a superintendent in place, she's ultimately reporting it to us, technically, right? The cabinet is going to be looking to the board. We're here at ultimate governance if we don't have that particular person. So I think for us to do our diligence, to say, okay, look, not only did our committee approve this person, but because we didn't have an HR director interview them, and because we didn't have a superintendent interview them, we as a board took our time to do the due diligence in a very professional manner, to check those boxes. And I'm sure we're all gonna come away feeling the same way, but at least we will have said, hey, we're accountable. Because not only did we take all of this in, but we also made some calls ourselves, and we all agreed. And I think that is the nature of governance. and I think it would be honest to do so.
What do you mean by made some calls?
I actually broached her with it, she seemed very open. I know Sarah had talked to her, and she also was open to having those conversations. So essentially just the opportunity to talk with her about, again, what I said earlier to her, which was her experiences, how those might apply here. I'd like to talk to her more about living in Loves Park and coming here, and if that bothers her at all, if she's planning to relocate. You know, just talking to her about general things, and then talking about the direction of since we're losing Jamie, now we have to replace Jamie, and what we're looking for in that type of candidate. And how, you know, what experiences she might have regarding those types of things. Maybe she sells us even harder, but long and short of it is, I just think it's something that we have to have the ultimate checkbox at the top.
Okay.
And
Val,
it's
did you
not-
have something to say?
Can I make one recommendation to that? If that's the direction the board chooses to go, as opposed to each board member individually having an interview with this candidate, that you do it collectively. So whatever questions, Jeremy, you ask, the whole board would hear. Whatever, you know, Jeff asks or Victoria asks, the whole group gets to hear, as opposed to one-off conversations.
I think it's great,
Then
actually, yeah.
Val has a comment.
Well, I have two. If the concern is that you know, in essence, who is she going to be reporting to? As a board, we've agreed collectively that we wanted Sarah Body to really transition this new director. So in that time frame, she's going to be transitioning our HR director. And obviously, you know, until we secure an interim, obviously reporting directly to the board. But if our goal is to interview her deeper, or to get to know her deeper, you know, we can still do that, and we can still guide her on what we want as a board, whether we vote tonight or not.
Yeah.
Right. And so she,
Sorry.
You said two things, Val. They're not-
I mean, I don't think.
hang on, hang on,
Conversation.
hang on,
You just said
one at a
we're-
time, one at a time.
Who's got the floor?
Well, I just say she had two things to say.
Right.
I haven't heard the other thing.
Right, so essentially what happened is we did agree to this process. In closed session, we agreed to the process that happened, and there was an interview that took place. This candidate was recommended unanimously, and this is the candidate that's been brought forward to the board to vote on. So to pull this candidate, and then wait and have us individually interview her, or, you know, take that further stuff doesn't seem to be prudent. Well, that's a possibility, but this is a recommendation that's made to us by our cabinet that we work with. You know, this is the process that we outlined, that we said we would follow, so.
I don't agree. I don't agree, make that clear.
And can I mention my second thing? In terms of equity in our district, we didn't interview the director of curriculum. We didn't interview the director of student services in terms of the board directly interviewing and then approving the
That's not
hire.
true.
But Jamie did.
Hold on, Jamie has something to say.
But you did have board members sit in on the curriculum director interviews.
Yes, but from the feedback that was given to us, we were told that that wasn't a good process, that it didn't involve transparency or openness for hiring, and that people weren't comfortable with that.
And that was expressed just before this process happened, so.
So let me just ask this a different way, because I have been discussing individually with Sarah Abadi recently, as well as we just heard from the candidate, and everything I'm hearing is she is 100% open to this process step. And she full on said it during our meeting. So I'm not worried about her leaving. I think she really wants this job. And I think this is an opportunity. But what it sounds like I'm hearing is that nobody wants to take that step. And that one would really, I don't understand. Why would we not want to do that?
I think
she's
been
ultimately
I
not
think
got
she's been
anybody
fully
reports.
vetted by cabinet and gone through the interview process and been recommended, and I
She hasn't gone.
trust.
She has gone through the process because she didn't.
She
interview
has
the
gone through the
superintendent or
interview
HR.
process that we outlined in closed session that you have all agreed
Well,
to.
first of all, I
She
didn't.
did go to.
I said I wanted Sarah Abadi to
Hang on,
interview her.
let's do
Let's
one
not
at a
assume
time.
that I agree.
Wait,
Let's, one at a time. One at a time.
Your turn.
So you agreed to this, we all agreed to this process, and she's gone through the process. I would hate to lose a candidate who's a high-quality candidate because of this stuff that we take, because of this uncertainty that we're not like, you know, listening to what our cabinet has presented to us and
I mean-
ready to move forward with
Okay,
it.
well,
We
you
don't,
just stop saying
we
things
don't
aren't
do
true
the
because I did not agree with the process.
that's.
I said in the meeting,
That was.
I
we had
wanted Sarah Body
consensus for
to
this
interview the
process.
candidate, and I didn't care that she had conflict. I said it openly, if you want to go find the recording, you'll find it. And I was okay with Jamie interviewing, but the question was, is that Jamie wouldn't be making the decision.
Oh, okay.
So that's why there's a difference of opinion here.
Well, we had consensus.
Yeah, we had
to move forward.
consensus, so you can't, we work as one
And
system.
that was my understanding, but I got the information, well, I saw it on Monday morning, and I didn't even know he'd interviewed him. So all this got thrust there, and my first thought was, we have an individual who
But you
is.
didn't receive this information Monday morning. You
Let him
looked at
talk.
it Monday
Let him
morning,
talk.
but you
Let him
received
talk.
it last
Stop
week.
interrupting him now. No, you're the interrupter.
Oh my gosh. People, I don't know why there's so much animosity. We could easily put this out 2 weeks, have a call with her later this week or next week. It would probably go great. We check all the boxes and we don't feel good about it. And we have a 7-0 vote instead of tonight. Now we're all sitting here going, are we gonna end up with 4-0 or 5-2 vote? What are we gonna end up with? I would like it to be unanimous. I would like to fall in love with this candidate. And I would like to know that somebody who's ultimately responsible for the direction of this district had a choice in this matter and actually was able to talk to her. That's all I'm asking.
We don't
I
hire
think it is
cabinet.
the smart, intelligent thing to do.
We don't hire cabinet. We hire the superintendent.
No, superintendents hire cabinets, and we don't have one doing that right now.
Right.
Okay, so we're next.
De facto.
We put Amy Delaney in charge of this process.
No, we didn't. She was a
We had
moderator on the call.
consensus. We had
She doesn't even have a
consensus for
vote.
that. That's why it happened, because we had consensus.
Oh, when he's not on our board.
You're mistaken.
I'm not mistaken at all.
We did
That's
not
why
put
it
her in charge
happened.
of it.
I'm sorry that you're not paying attention and that you didn't look at your
directors
email
did you
until
hire?
yesterday morning, because you had this information last week.
Can I make a suggestion that there's been a motion and a second to remove item D from the consent agenda? And Melissa, do you have, I'm not the board chair, so I can't
Can
call
I
for a
ask
vote, but
one
I'm making the recommendation that I don't think that this discussion is going to change, so
Can I ask Sarah Body one question before we call a roll call? Sarah, do you,
Yes,
what is
I'm
your,
here.
what is your recommendation?
I don't know that it's appropriate for me to make a recommendation here in public setting. Honestly, I think this is a board decision. I'm sorry, Sam. You know, I agree with the statements that were made, how, you know, we operate from, you know, my perspective, we, you know, everything as far as, you know, the process and what was discussed here is accurate, in my opinion. Clearly, there was, you know, a breakdown in communication, if you will, or understanding. But I don't know that it's appropriate for me to, I mean, my recommendation essentially is the contract that we put forward tonight. But I don't know that I can sway the board or make recommendation to the board on to pull or not pull. I don't think that's my position.
I'm sorry,
I
I put
think
you
we
in
need
a.
to be very careful how specific we're speaking of an individual in open session.
Yep.
Just
I
a
understand.
gentle reminder.
Yep, I understand.
So moving forward,
Roll call.
roll call.
Jeff Albright? What are we voting on right
So,
now?
so the
Voting on
vote
that.
You're voting on
is
the
to
motion
remove,
item D
you're voting to remove item D from the consent agenda
and shift it to
and shift it to the June 2nd agenda.
Jeff Albright,
Yes.
Smith McDavid,
No.
Sarah Moses,
No,
Victoria Newport,
yes.
Jeremy Olson,
Yes.
Valerie Penny Hernandez,
No.
David Seymour.
No.
Okay, motion fails, so now we need to go back, board chair, and the motion to approve consent agenda as presented, or motion to approve non-business consent agenda as presented.
Okay, so motion to approve non-business consent agenda items APG as presented. Is there a motion?
I'll move.
Second?
Second.
Roll
Need a
call.
roll call.
Samantha McDavid,
Yes.
Sarah Moses,
Yes.
Victoria Newport, abstain. Jeremy Olson,
No.
Valerie Pena Hernandez,
Yes.
David Seymour,
Yeah.
Jeff Albert.
Abstain.
Okay, next,
Business consent agenda, item 6.
okay, so business consent agenda. The recommended action is that the Board of Education approve the business consent agenda, items A through D. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call. Victoria Newport,
Yes.
Jeremy Olson.
Yep.
Valerie Pena Hernandez,
Yes.
David Seymour,
Yeah.
Jeff Albert,
Yes.
Samantha McDavid,
Yes.
Sarah Moses.
Yes. Next is presentations. The subject is social and emotional plan update by Ms. Christy Meyer. This is for discussion, information, and presentation.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I'm excited this evening to share with you the plan and the update to that plan for our social emotional learning throughout the DeKalb school system. I am joined with all of our social emotional, district social emotional committee. And as we each present, we'll introduce ourselves and our role within the district. Now, the thing is, I'm uncertain as to, can you see the presentation right now?
No.
Okay.
It's loading. There we go.
Do you see what I see?
We do.
Okay, very good.
Go ahead and
All
hit
right.
present. There you go.
Pardon me?
We're
You're
good.
good. Perfect.
We're good. Okay, so I want to share with you that our social emotional plan, we first wrote it back in 2018-19, and that's your school year. And at your leisure, you can read through our plan. We have presented it to the board in the past, but perhaps some of you don't know we're there at that time. But there is a link there to our full plan. Our mission is to create that consistent multi-tiered systems of support. You've heard us talk about multi-tiered systems of support, or MTSS, in each building. The MTSS model, which you'll see a little bit later in this presentation, is one that has two sides. And we have been functioning in the academic side very well in our district. And we're, this plan is building up the other side, the social emotional behavioral side of the MTSS model. What we'd like to first do is talk to you a little bit about the accomplishments that this committee, as well as many, many others throughout the district, have accomplished in the last 2 years.
Hi, good evening. I'm Jackie Tuck, and I am one of the social workers at the high school. I'm honored to be here tonight to share with you a little bit of our accomplishments, starting with the 2018-2019 school year. We obviously couldn't do what we're doing without your support. So we do greatly appreciate that. That helped us to get some direction on where we work on implementing a social emotional learning plan for the district. We started really with an audit of our MTSS systems from pre-K all the way through 12th grade. and then rebooted our tier 1 systems, the supports that we have in place for all students across grade levels, across buildings. At the pre-K through 5th grade or elementary levels, we looked at piloting a social emotional curriculum called Caring School Communities. We did that throughout all of those buildings at all of those levels, and then really adapted that program later on and is running smoothly right now in all of our buildings. In addition to that, at the pre-K through 5th grade level, we also looked into and researched different tier 2 interventions. So some interventions that we could put in place for some of our smaller groups, for our students that maybe were struggling a little bit more significantly than our large groups. At the middle school level, we took the opportunity to research and select some tier 1 social emotional screeners so that we could gather more information on all of our students in areas that they might be struggling with and or need more support with regards to their social emotional learning. At the high school level, we trained a few of our staff, our student services members, on a program called Y-Try, and then piloted a couple of tier 2 small groups based on students who were struggling with being on time to class. And then finally, wrote and adopted a mental health crisis plan that was then disseminated through our district website to help guide how we're responding to crises in each building at each level.
Thank you, Jen. My name is Amy Luckner. I think I've met most of you. My role currently is I'm the Assessment, Research, and MTSS Coordinator for the district. And I'm going to talk a little bit about our progress then this last year. And you'll see, basically this last year, we've really focused on building from what we started in 2018, 2019, and expanding. Primarily, as Jen mentioned, we piloted a tier 1 program in 18-19 called Caring School Community in pre-K through 5th grade, and this year we've expanded it to all classrooms. So we've really expanded our implementation of that tier 1 service for our younger students. And then we also continue working on our system development with our MTSS external coaches, and that is district-wide. And includes both kind of the tier 1 supports that are available, as well as really looking at our systems at tier 2 and tier 3. At the middle school level, then we implemented the screener that we researched and chose last year, and we're able to start using some of that information for providing tier 2 and tier 3 supports. And we're working with our middle school teams to also then identify a tier 1 social emotional curriculum. And we have a couple teachers on board to pilot a few options as well. As you heard about, I believe at the last meeting, Y-Try is a program that John mentioned as well at the high school, and this year we've been expanding it to really set up a system where that can be used more at a tier 1 level, so more students can really benefit from this support. So we're excited about that. And then the mental health crisis plan then was also brought in to include virtual delivery. And of course, as we'll talk about in some more detail, we've really been focusing more recently in the past 8 weeks rather, really supporting students during the school closure. And we'll be talking about in the next couple of slides, as well as some initial thoughts about moving forward with that. I will turn that over.
Hello, I'm Gina Torcaso, and I'm a school psychologist at Huntley Middle School. So going along with what Amy said in the previous slide, we've compiled some specific COVID-19 resources from our professional organizations as clinicians and also from reputable websites and added them to a page that's on our district crisis webpage. We've also developed a district resource guide that includes all the links to things for our e-learning guidance, our websites that we've created, as well as other community resources available, and mental health just coping tips for our students, parents, and educators. We've broadened the mental health crisis response plan to be applicable to a virtual environment and have sort of practiced what that might look like as a crisis committee for its deployment. We've collaborated with NIU school psychology faculty to release professional development related to specific
self-care strategies to apply during the pandemic. And our district clinicians have created many creative social emotional lessons targeting appropriate coping strategies and stress management techniques for all of our students, and some of which have been included on our crisis webpage.
This is Jen Katomsky again, social worker. We just wanted to share with you what the website actually looks like on the district that is related to the COVID-19 resources. So you can see that on the slide on the right. It's really comprehensive. The crisis team really worked to make sure that there were strategies and resources available, not just for our students, but for their families and for our staff. So we had access to local agencies and resources that we could be using during this time to kind of cope with everything that we're experiencing, the things that we're feeling. There were some lessons that were pushed out. We did some small group stuff, some classroom-wide stuff, some individualized stuff, really focused on management of stress, not just for the student, but for the family as a whole, looking at different coping skills to use when dealing with stress, some of that emotion regulation, really calming our worries, and then that self-compassion piece and self-care. And on the next slide, you can see just snapshots of different video presentations that were created by social workers, school psychologists, and counselors within the district that were pushed out to students and are also available on our district website as a resource for all families. So even if the social worker might have been from one specific school and pushed that resource out to their students, it was also available on the district website so that everybody had access to it if they were looking for more resources and support and information to get through this crisis.
Hi, I'm Lisa Becker. I'm a student services teacher on special assignment. Good to be with you tonight. So we do have some goals. We've been goal setting for the 2021 school year. That was going on before the school closure, and of course, we've kind of rapidly changed directions based on the COVID-19 school closure. And so really our focus right now is reintegrating students back into school, whatever that may look like in the fall, through really a trauma-informed lens. So, trauma is pretty broadly defined as any event that overwhelms anyone's ability to cope with it. And I think it would be safe to say that myself, our students, staff, pretty much everyone has some level of trauma due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And so we're going to really focus on gathering information on how our own students are doing to provide supports to them, but also in the framework of knowing that this is a priority of ISBE's. So for example, in an email they sent out earlier this week with some updates, they talked about how really the priority is going to be student social emotional well-being. And so we're looking forward to additional guidance, but really taking that guidance, looking at it through trauma-informed care, and putting together a reintegration plan that uses our three-tiered model that we're used to working. Kyle?
Yep, thank you, Dr. Becker. Good evening. My name is Kyle Gertis. I'm currently a school psychologist at Clinton Rosette Middle School and the high school. But July 1st, I'll be transitioning into the Director of Student Services position. Earlier in the meeting, we talked a little bit about some of the process we're going through to figure out what our plan is to reintegrate students back, especially looking at that social emotional, the need for that support. So as we kind of already talked about, our district improvement team is kind of overseeing that process, but has formed various working groups or subcommittees to look a little more specifically at what's needed at each level. So there's currently 3 different subcommittees, one that's looking at what our ELDC and elementary students need. There's another committee that's looking at our middle schools, and then another committee that's looking at our high school. The structure and the guidance, as Dr. Becker kind of alluded to, is looking at the impact of trauma and providing supports through that multi-tiered system of support. So knowing that all students are likely affected in some way, we want to make sure that we're providing support for all students, but then also being able to provide more intense level of supports for students that may be having more difficulty as we reintegrate back in the school building. The discussions have been ongoing, but our teams are meeting, our high school team meets this week, and then our middle and elementary schools will meet next week to kind of get the ball rolling. And I know it's kind of nice, we're getting a lot of information sent our way. So there's a lot of different professional organizations that are starting to put out some guidance or some things to think about as districts begin to put together their reintegration plans.
So that puts all of our social emotional plan for the last 2 years and the accomplishments that our district has done in the last 2 years. I am truly humbled by the efforts of this group, this social emotional committee, working alongside of their colleagues within each of their buildings throughout the district to have really started from the ground floor with our social emotional plan and look at the momentum and the accomplishments as a district that we've been able to do in the last 2 years. Now, as Kyle mentioned, certainly we have a lot of work in front of us, in particular to prepare for our reintegration of our students in the fall. So at this time, we would entertain any of your questions as you look at these pictures of our children as they're engaged in caring school communities. Any questions?
Thank you.
I do, but I can wait.
Oh, Jen.
Just as far as the PowerPoints are concerned, oh man, where do I begin? I see it as being a summary of the activity. I mean, I see this as a summary of the activity, and it seems like these PowerPoints would be, if you were in front of the PowerPoint and explaining item by item. Obviously, in this situation, in our meeting here, we can't do that because we don't have 3 hours to do that. But as far as, I mean, just pulling something out of a hat here, I had a question when we did the 2019-20 accomplishment. Broaden the mental health crisis plan to include virtual delivery of the plan. Makes sense to you. I don't understand what that is. And I'm not asking you to explain it particularly right now, but I'm just telling you, I know the why try. We went over why try. So every time why try comes up, I have the benefit of that discussion that we had when you were renewing or re-upping why try. But as far as screen middle school students using Review 360, I don't recall what that is particularly, though that's my fault. So I think, I mean, you may have already done this, but I think if in future, if you could give me on each one of these items, I know, again, it's just adding to the information, but if you could give me a short outcome following the description. So in other words, develop district guide with easy access to resources. 5 words that say, this is what that will accomplish. So, I mean, in other words, we then accomplish this with easy access to resources. We accomplished the expediting confusion on, or whatever. I'm pulling something out of a hat. Do you understand what I'm saying? In other words, I get a bullet point, develop district guide with easy access to resources, or added specific COVID-19 crisis resources to the webpage. That's fairly self-explanatory. But broaden the mental health crisis plan for use in virtual environment. Virtual environment, I know what a virtual environment is, but I don't understand how the broaden the health crisis response plan moved to the virtual environment, unless it's just we implemented this plan. Virtual environment, I'm not sure. So there's that. there's that issue, and I'm sorry if that sounds complicated.
Jeff, do you have a question regarding that piece, the virtual piece? Because we can absolutely
No,
respond to
because
that question.
Because it's about everything here. I mean, in other words, IND, what's the IND? I missed that. What,
Individual
or small group tailored needs. I sort of understand that. Then small groups based on, I'm looking at the last pyramid before the questions. Small groups based on need for limited length of time, i.e. grief loss, executive functions, social skills. I mean, in your world, that means a lot. In my world, I
would recommend a special meeting for this group to come back and present the full social emotional plan to the board. I mean, it literally would be a 3-hour meeting.
It would be.
I think it would be beneficial for the board.
Well, thank you.
I also have a question along those lines, actually. And thank you guys for the presentation. I don't disagree. It would be, I mean, I know a little bit about this, but there is a lot here I don't understand either. But the question I have is more around, we get pitched as board members all the time for different plans and different strategies. And I know there's the Why Try program we just sort of pushed through, and there's other programs. We have this continuation of the MTSS system development and developing that. I guess, what in your opinion, like, is everything working great, or are there programs that are awesome that we love that we definitely want to continue to develop? Is there anything that maybe isn't working great? Like, it's hard for us to know from this sort of what you guys are excited about, and should we be thinking about other things that maybe some of these things aren't, and we should just shove them to the side? Like, how's that process work over there? And are there some things that you think are really great that we've added, and things that maybe we don't like?
I think you like Why Try. At least that's what I got from last time.
So in answer to your question, Jeremy, we are working through an MTSS structure. So the triangle that you're referring to, that is the MTSS structure.
Right.
And what we've done well, as a district, and I'm very proud of our district for doing this, is that we have researched and vetted our universal, or that tier 1. We identified screeners so that we could use data in order to then use those screeners and get the data in order to determine who needs more of an intervention, or that tier 2. And then we use that data to guide us to if a student needs more than a tier 2 intervention. And so we continue to use what we're proud of and successful at is using that MTSS model. Without the MTSS model, you're just throwing a dart and hoping and throwing people at the issues that are the social emotional issues that our students have. As far as and I'm only one member of this committee, so anyone else who'd like to speak to it. We are also, what's working is this format we use at the elementary, middle school, and high school, and the momentum to address the social emotional needs, the behavioral needs, the attendance can all be managed or systematized through this model. That's the success. That is the success. And building that from the ground up, from foundation of tier 1 to tier 2 to tier 3, that is the success that our district should be very proud of. Programmatically, we are seeing growth in our classroom. We are seeing progress in our classroom behaviors and classroom climate using the Caring School Communities at the elementary. And then you've heard the positive responses to Why Try. And so moving forward, we're looking at a combination of those two at the middle school, because 6th graders present very differently than 8th graders. So we're looking right now, that's our charge, is to look forward and see if Caring School Communities can meet some of those sixth grade needs, where Y-Tri might be able to bridge our eighth graders to the high school. Those are tier one, and those will make the most success with our students, because when you talk tier one, that's 80% of our students. That should be 80% of our students. And go ahead.
I was going to ask if I could share an example. My name is Jen Gammelgard. I'm one of the council supervisors at middle school. Thank you for your time tonight and for your interest. I think part of what's important about the trial to know and understand is that tier one piece is something that by implementing into one curriculum, we're including every staff member, all of the teaching staff, in making sure that our students get some basic social emotional learning and have the opportunity to be exposed to some basic social emotional skills. And so what that does is it takes the burden of that educating and basic skill development off of just services and it spreads it out to our entire teaching school community. And so then what that allows us to do is it allows us to take that tier 2 and tier 3 portion and allow our clinicians to do what we're trained for and to really focus our specialty energy on supporting those smaller groups. So, for example, a student at Rosette getting the Caring School Communities curriculum is going to get that, and then based on data that we get from that student from our screener, we can then decide that student needs some additional supports, and we would provide them with tier 2 supports, especially if they still needed more than those tier 3 supports. So, these tiers are important to us because it essentially is a division of labor and also helps us to prioritize our time and to best support students. So I don't know if that helps at all.
It does.
That's great information. Thank you.
It does. So as I understand it, and this is to the entire group that's there, pardon me, but as I see it here, just from a general standpoint, I mean, this is very specific, and it's been the result of a great deal of effort to try to coalesce or try to distill this information into a bite-sized chunk for this meeting. But as I understand it, with the entire group, all of our student population, we cast a wide net and we then draw it in with an understanding that needs, using different tools at those various points to draw them in, to give them assistance, and then finally working up to the ones that seem to have most needs and require a deeper amount of care and attention. Am I seeing that correctly, that we're working with different tools to draw in that population?
That is correct, John. Mm-hmm. And with the hope that when we give them those interventions, that then they're able to then go into the tier 1 and just get what they need from tier 1. Because once you're in a tier 2, doesn't mean you're always in tier 2. We're hoping to flow students back down to the tier 1 after giving them the supports that they need.
I'm making that, you and I have had this discussion over the years, Christy, it's moving people not just into care, but back out into the general population and after having given care.
That is correct, Jeff.
May I ask a question? Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. May I ask a question, Christy? So I thank you for this presentation, and I see a lot of the accomplishments hit a lot of the goals and objectives in the SEL plan. I know that the focus going into the next school year is definitely going to be integration and support because of COVID, but I didn't see any accomplishments that specifically speak to the development of restorative practices in the classroom, and I was wondering if that will be a priority. I know there's been professional development throughout the district. I didn't know how that's going since it's not listed in the accomplishments yet.
Very good. So restorative practices, Jen, you could speak some to that piece as well in regards to why try, but I can speak as well regarding the caring school communities. That is developing that climate and culture within a pre-K or elementary classroom that is restorative practices. And also, I'd like to share that our MTSS external coaches have been integrating restorative practices into it as PBIS. Keep emphasizing that that's the MTSS model. They keep integrating restorative practices into their counseling of our groups as well, in our green group or our tier 1 groups and tier 2 groups.
Perfect, I just didn't see that language, thank you.
And I can speak a little bit to the Y-Try piece too. Actually, starting today, many of our teachers started their training. It's today, tomorrow, and Thursday. And there's a huge component of the training for Y-Try that focuses on the relationship building, the restorative practices. They teach something called surrendering the one-up, and it's allowing the students to see that the teachers aren't there having power over the students, but they're there working collaboratively and together so that they're one unit. And it's, kind of like Christy was talking about at the elementary level, really focusing on that community building within the classroom, so that it's not just like, someone like me as a social worker stepping in and teaching a lesson in the classroom and then not returning again for a week. It's the classroom teacher that's there with them every day, giving them that opportunity to build that relationship.
I would also just add for caring school communities that it has the same kind of basis to it, that it is all based in that and kind of steeped in that model of restorative practices. And I think we're so used to the idea that these programs put forward restorative practices that we're not thinking about it as something we need to explicitly state, because it's so much a part of those programs that we're trying to put in place for our students.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah. So,
Thank you for your time and attention
yeah.
and interest in this subject.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks.
No action to be taken.
Appreciate it.
We'll have to talk more.
So consent to bring this back, right? Or no?
There's just presentation, no action.
Gotcha. Okay, so next is consolidated district plan. Mr. Tim Vincent, Ms. Christy Meyer, Ms. Kim Lyle, and Mr. Kyle Curtis, Dr. Vicki Tuskin, and Ms. Amy Crook. So this is an
So
action.
good evening, everyone. I'm going to be leading these, a pretty brief presentation about the consolidated district plan. A little bit about this as I present my screen is that the consolidated district plan is a state requirement. It's a rather routine thing that every school board who applies for any federal grant has to do every spring to early summer. So you'll generally see it annually every April or May. They just started it last year, and then this will be the second year that we're presenting this. I included in your board packet a 38-page. I think it's a 38-page, very detailed plan, or the entire plan. So this is just kind of a succinct version of it. But the consolidated district plan is a mechanism that the state can use to make sure that we are not applying for state or federal grants in silos. So we are collaborating and taking a similar needs assessment for each one of those grants and making sure that we're talking amongst departments and people with different responsibilities. In the past, as I understand it, it has been very siloed approach for all the grants. District 428 applies for 8 of the 12 possible federal grants. The 8 are listed here that include support for literacy for students of low income status, professional development, bilingual programming, children and after school support, and support with students with disabilities. The 4 that we do not apply for include things that we wouldn't, that we don't qualify for, things like support for rural schools and students who are, or schools that operate for juvenile delinquent centers and things like that. So these are the 8 grants that we approve. If you've got specifics, the reason why we have a number of people that are on this presentation afterwards, if you've got specifics with the grant or each individual grant itself or any of the specific language, everybody's here to be able to respond to that. So one of the things that, or what the consolidated district plan, as I said earlier, is one single plan that essentially gives us permission to open up the rest of the grants. Throughout the entire year, there's a number of checkpoints in each one of these grants with expenditure reports and revision. This is a very general, if you look in there, it's a very general basic plan that gets updated and amended throughout the year. So that this is by design kind of a mechanism to open up all of those grants and making sure that it's one single plan for the multiple departments and multiple funding sources. This also, allows for more collaboration within the district with multiple departments. So you can expect that there's a number of things that are included in each one of the categories of the consolidated district plan. Now, if you look at it, there's a needs assessment and some data to ask for, and professional development for each one, as well as stakeholder involvement. So that's all part of the plan if you look through it. One thing that's important, it is not a grant application. Again, this kind of opens up all 8 of those grant applications. So you can't really dig in and get into the specifics until this is a state and federal requirement that this plan is approved by the school board before we're allowed to get into the specifics of those grants. So there's no guarantee here. This is not a reporting mechanism. Each individual grant has that within it. So this is basically a doorway to open up all of the rest of the grant. So all of the things that are included in what the consolidated district plan is not, is included in each one of those plans. So again, this is a brief presentation because this is a rather routine deal that essentially the board is giving us permission to send this to the state and have them open up some of the other grants. We have an opportunity for questions, but before we do that, I know I sped through that rather quickly. Is there anybody on the team that wants to jump in here on anything that I forgot?
Well, I do want to say one thing, Tim. Part of this, it is kind of just a check mark that districts have to go through. Because once we open this up and start applying for the grants, as Tim pointed out, all throughout the year, grants can be amended, they can be changed along the way, and there's constant checkpoints not only at the district level, but also they're getting reviewed constantly at the state level. So at times we'll submit a grant and we'll submit it back to us and say that we need to amend it for reasons A, B, and C. So it's a constant, I go into Iowa's, which is where I have to go in and give the final approval for submittal. I'm in there probably at minimum 3 times a week throughout the year, because different things get submitted at different times of the year and resubmitted, and depending on after the ISBE review, they may get sent back for addendums or for us to make changes, and then everything gets resubmitted. So anytime you're dealing with federal money, especially, there are multiple hoops and loops and checks that occur. So this is just giving us permission to go start into the process, basically.
Right. Thank you.
Any questions?
I have one.
Go ahead.
So who writes the grants? Once this process begins, it seems like there's an enormous amount of work here. Is it individuals, the individuals we're looking at over here?
It's multiple people, Jeff. Multiple people, depending on the grant.
Right.
You know, the IDEA grants, our special education grants are within Christie's, right now Christie's department.
Right.
And there are multiple people that have their hands in creating and pulling those numbers together. Professional development grants come primarily from the curriculum department. And again, it's not just one person. Those grants that have to do with our ELL population and TVE population. Those grants are written primarily through Amy Crook with, again, the support of others. So it's not like there's one or two people that sit down and are writing all of these grants. There's many, you know, Amy or Kim Lyle is very involved in her position of writing a lot of these grants for the K-8 elementary. So many people have their hands in it. Again, at the district level, there's multiple checkpoints. Within the Iowa's is the system that manages all of the federal state grants. Within the Iowa system, there's multiple checkpoints. So for instance, Kim would have to submit, somebody else in her department has to review and sign off or check off. It gets forwarded to me. Some of them go to Cindy before they come to me. So there's multiple eyes that are on these before they ever go to Springfield.
I just want to say, I have written grants in the past, and there's a science and an art to those, and it's just, you make one little misstep and the thing gets booted out. And I just want to say how much I appreciate the amount of work that it looks like here. This is just, it's just an enormous amount of work. And thank you to all of you, including you, Jamie, and our
My part's easy, I just do the final review.
you're shaking your head. You've done it a million times. It's tough. So thank you very much. I appreciate that from everybody.
Absolutely, thank you.
Is there any concern at all over, you know, this whole COVID thing, state of Illinois, that sort of thing, federal grant monies, like in terms of, you know, how much of the grants we typically get versus, you know, is there going to be a potential to not get as much of those grants as we typically do? I mean, is there, or is it just supposed to be status quo?
You know, and Cindy can weigh in on this as well. I haven't, in all the narrative that I've been seeing, we've been focused more on what the impact is going to be with our state funding, EBF, local funding. Cindy, I haven't seen, or have you or Amir seen much coming across about potential impact on federal funding?
No, not a decrease. Actually, the CARES Act, which actually the state just opened up a grant, another grant related specifically to COVID, and those are specifically federal funds. And we've been allocated about $1.6 million. Now, the grant is going to be specific to COVID-related items, having to do with curriculum, e-learning, even some facility stuff in regards to cleaning, disinfecting. There's a lot of kind of a large net in terms of what would qualify. I was just, well, actually, Amir was on a webinar today related to that, and there's quite a laundry list of things. So we will be looking at that grant and as a cabinet in totality, because it's kind of touchy to our departments in terms of what it could potentially fund. And we'll have to look strategically as to how we could use those dollars. So from a federal perspective, if anything, there are more dollars being put on the table for states.
From the CARES Act, but we haven't heard anything about our federal grants, our title grants being reduced.
No, have not. I mean, the initial allocations we received are pretty consistent with what we've seen on a year-to-year basis. So we have not seen anything in regards to decreases in the federal grants at this point.
Well, isn't the concern really from a local standpoint? That's what I've been reading the most.
Correct? In terms of funding?
Yeah, in terms of funding.
Yeah, it's primarily, probably not as local as much as it is state. Because most of our local dollars come from property taxes, obviously. We may see a little, let's say less cash coming in just because of the county putting in a property tax penalty waiver, or people don't pay their, June installment, they have till September, so we may see some people that might delay paying. Our district's, cash flow is in a strong position at this moment, so it won't really impact us that much. The state funding is really what concerns me to some extent, because we really just don't know what that's gonna look like and what the evidence-based funding is gonna look like. What we've been hearing is that we may not get additional, we're in tier 1 and we get those additional tier 1 dollars. Those dollars may not be there, those additional dollars. I mean, from what I'm looking at, if we can just stay steady with what we're receiving now, that would be optimal. And whether that's going to happen or not, we don't know that either. So there's still a lot of talk about what state funding is going to look like, and if there will be federal funding to support the states as well. Similar to what they did back in 2008, 2009, we went through the recession, where the feds put our dollars in to support general state aid. It's basically what they did back then.
So, Sarah Moses, this is an action item that we need to have the board approve the consolidated district plan tonight.
Okay, so roll call.
Just go ahead and make the motion.
Oh, motion, okay, so, the recommendation is that the Board of Education approve the consolidated district plan as attached. So motion,
So moved.
Second.
roll call.
Jeremy Olson,
Yes.
Valerie King Hernandez,
Is the car not running or something?
Yes, yes, I'm so sorry.
it's okay. David Seymour,
Yeah.
Jeff Albrin,
With thanks, yes.
Samantha McDavid,
Yes.
Sarah Moses,
Yes.
Victoria Newport.
Yes.
Old business action items, agreement between NIU and District 428 for 2 school psychologist externs. Ms. Christy Meyer, this is an action item that the Board of Education moved to approve the agreement between NIU District 428 for 2 school psychologist externs. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second,
Roll call?
Valerie King Hernandez,
Yes.
David Seymour,
Yes.
Jeff Albrin,
yes.
Samantha McDavid,
Yes.
Sarah Moses,
Yes.
Victoria Newport,
Yes.
Jeremy Olson.
Yes.
New business administration. This is a contract for supportive programs and alternative to suspension, CIBS, with Special Education Services Mentor Group, Ms. Christy Meyer. This is for discussion and information.
So for the past several years, the district has contracted with Ombudsman to provide supportive alternative education programming for high school students who need a smaller educational setting with more flexible hours. Many of the students within the Ombudsman program have anxiety or may need to work to support their families. This alternative education programming has helped to keep students in school and earn credits towards graduation. Our 3-year contract with Ombudsman is over this year, and we are taking this opportunity to enter into a contractual agreement with Special Education Services, which is the Mentor Group, to provide similar services through their nonprofit organization. Within the contract are 3 distinct programs: supported program and self-directed learning programs, which are similar to Ombudsman, are for 46 DeKalb students who are at risk of failing and who are in need of additional support to achieve success. Mentor Group offers accelerated credit recovery, online learning, credit earning through work experience, and cross-curricular project-based learning and traditional classroom-based learning experiences as well. The location of this program is slated for the Penns Point market. However, there is a delay in getting that building ISBE approved due to COVID-19, so we are starting the year remotely. The cost of the mentor programming is the same as the Ombudsman contract. The other 2 programs are temporary placements for students, alternative to suspension for students in general education, and crisis intervention behavioral stabilization, or SIBS, for students with IEP. These 2 programs are rapid response and student focused. As a district, we are in need of these programs. However, at this time, we have recently decided to delay these options due to the uncertain financial implications of COVID-19. They will be removed from the contract, and in fact, today, Menta Group has sent a revised contract without those two programs.
So in summary, if you remember when we were in the process of working with the Menta Group in Cheeseboro, this was going to be part of that overall package. Unfortunately, due to all of this, we've had to delay construction, delay the opening of the Menta program, but we still have the opportunity to renew or discontinue the program with Ombudsman and sign up with Menta in a similar program, again, which was going to be part of the package anyway. So that's what this informational item is tonight. The contract without the other programs, which we can't start because, again, of the uncertainty of where we're going to be in the fall, the uncertainty of the economic impact, that will be brought back at our next meeting for action.
This will,
Do you have any?
Yes.
less those two items, sorry.
Oh, so will we possibly be bringing those back? What if we can?
Well, I clearly won't be here, but
Right.
yes. And what it's going, part of this is, it goes back to this previous conversation about, what is school going to look like come August? And is it, are we ABC plan? What can Menta provide at that time? And also, what space is available? What Christy's speaking to, there was a space that Menta wanted to get into, but right now the state fire marshal, they're not coming out and doing inspections. So they can't get into their facility and be approved to get into their facility until fire marshal can come and inspect it and deem it okay. So there's still some check boxes that they have to work through. And Christy's done a great job of working with them and trying to get all of this pulled together. And we unfortunately run into some roadblocks here and there. But this particular program will replace the current ombudsman program that we have in place. And, we're kind of easing into the water with Menta instead of jumping in with one great big splash.
And all three of these programs would have been at Penn's Point though, if they were able to be there.
Yes.
Okay.
That is correct, but as a cabinet and with the uncertain financial times that we're walking into here this next year, we decided we needed to pull the alternative to suspension and SIBS program at this point. It's just prudent, and like I said, it is a necessary program in the future, and hope we can bring it back. In particular, we're seeing that as a need throughout our district, but I know as a group, they have identified a need at the elementary to help with that crisis intervention.
Are all these programs with Ombudsman now?
So I agree, I share Samantha's sentiment that.
Valerie, can I answer a question? I don't think you heard it. Jeremy asked, are all of these programs with Ombudsman right now? And the answer is no. We don't have an alternative to suspension program, which we desperately need, or the SIBS, local SIBS program. So all we have is the support, the academic support program, which is Ombudsman.
Go ahead, Val.
I agree. Jamie, what you just said is exactly what my concern is, that we currently don't have, and this was a really exciting thing that the Menta Group we were going to be able to do. Now, I understand that the finances, the financial situation of everyone right now is uncertain, really. And so they're faced with having to make these tough calls. But I think, could there be something written or language maybe written where we could potentially say, we would like to explore this option once obviously the finance situation is resolved within our state and within our nation. Could there be something written in there just to ensure, because this is something so important, specifically in our district. And just having conversations, obviously at DHS, and like Christy just said, I mean, even the elementary level, there's just concerns all around too. So, you know, this is something very important, and I do share that sentiment with Samantha.
So again, this will be brought back at the June 2nd board meeting as an action item.
To answer your question, Valerie, that, may I just say that the mentor group is ready and willing to have this alternative to suspension program at DeKalb, as soon as they have the Penns Point market available. But unfortunately, that will be at a cost that is not currently within our budget. So that would have to come back to the board for your approval at that point.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Next subject is, consensus to bring back. Next is food service contract renewal.
If we have letter, did we skip B? Letter of agreement, DCTA early childhood.
Yep. Next is letter of agreement, DCTA early childhood teachers training time with Ms. Sarah Bobby.
Hi there, can everyone hear me?
Yeah. Hang on, Victoria is asking a question.
Did we have consensus to bring it back?
We didn't do it yet.
I said consensus. Bring it back.
Didn't say anything. I didn't hear it, sorry.
I'll give consensus.
Yes, I
You
give
said yes.
consensus. Yes.
Actually,
Yep.
Okay, go ahead,
Yes,
Sarah.
yes, I consent as well, I'm sorry. Sometimes I think the mic is on, I'm so sorry.
Okay. Go ahead, Sarah. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. We have Lisa Goldbarshels with us tonight as well. Included on your agenda is a letter of agreement with DCTA, which outlines some supplemental contract language related to teacher planning time and EC. EC structure is a bit different than the rest of our elementary school. And this letter of agreement essentially documents current practice as it relates to teacher planning time. Lisa, did you have anything to add to that summary?
No, I don't. It's very well summarized. Thank you.
Hey, David, we're getting some background noise.
And David, I think that's you, David.
Thank you.
Is the camera?
Okay, so consent to bring it back?
Wait, can I ask a question?
Oh, sorry.
So with this, does this mean that Fridays there would be no attendance for students?
So there is not currently, 60 of our students do not attend our early childhood special education. Students are Monday through Thursday.
Gotcha.
And therein lies the difficulty in those teachers getting their planning time in the Monday through Thursday time frame due to what's outlined in their bus duties and their the turnaround for their classes is so short and their lunch.
Oh, so Lisa, does this only affect the EC teachers or does it affect the PFA teachers also?
Only the early childhood special education teachers, the 3 self-contained special ed teachers.
Okay, I was confused. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so any other questions?
No, thank you.
Okay, so consent to bring this back.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Okay, next, food service contract renewal for 2020, 2021, Airmark Educational Food Services LLC, Ms. Cynthia Carpenter.
Hi, everybody. Annually, we come to the board, and this is an informational item for this particular meeting, to renew our food service contract. We have been with Airmark for the last, we're just finishing up our 3rd year with Airmark as our food service vendor, as we are part of the federal child nutrition program, and every 5 years we are required to go through a full bid process. But within that, while you're in that 5-year contract, you basically do annual renewals that are specific to how the bid was put together back when we did it back in 2017. So part of that contract is each year our increase with Aramark is tied to the consumer price index. And for this particular contract year, for the 2021 contract year, the CPI was 2.3%, but our bid had capped that increase at 2%. So we're looking at a 2% increase in our cost to Aramark. The way we are billed through Aramark is they bill us on a per meal basis, whether it be a breakfast or a lunch, or we also have a la carte items, which are the extra items primarily at the high school and the middle schools. So in addition to the 2% increase, because of the state mandated minimum wage increases that are effective and becoming effective the next couple of years, there's an additional cost of about $22,000, which is, there's actually a fairly detailed spreadsheet that gets prepared that comes directly from the state. All of this information is very well controlled by the federal and state governments in regards to this program because it is federally funded. So right now, Aramark, they actually did finish the paperwork. I just received it very late on Friday. I'm still reviewing that. Once that's completed and I review and make sure everything looks consistent with what our current contract is, we will bring this back to the board at the June 2nd meeting for approval. And then all this documentation does get submitted to the state for their review as well. And I do want to just put kudos to Aramark and our entire food service department. They're continuing to provide meals to all our students through all of this. We've surpassed 70,000 meals that we have been able to support our students in various different mobile sites around the community. And Aramark has been with us the entire time to help support that as well. And we appreciate all those efforts by their staff as well as our staff.
Absolutely. Any questions? Consent to bring us back?
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
And then moving to copier paper bid results. Cynthia Carpenter.
So
You're
we
up,
had, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you're up.
I'm up, okay. So a couple board meetings back, we had brought this as informational that we were going to go out to bid for our copier paper. We do this on an annual basis. Actually, right in the middle of our bid is when COVID hit, so we kind of had to regroup, and we did rebid this because the bid opening was supposed to be happening. I think it was the week that COVID did hit. We did get bid back. Actually, only one company did actually put a bid in, which is Mid-City Office Supplies. They just happen to be also the vendor that we use for office supplies as well. Usually we have a different office supply vendor and a different paper vendor. And luckily their bid actually is a lower price than what we're paying at the moment. So because we did receive responsive bids, we did get bids basically saying that they did not want to bid. Don't know exactly why, but we feel pretty good about the bid that Mid-City has given us. And so we are recommending to the board to use Mid-City for our copier paper for our 2021 school year.
Can I move that we approve it tonight before they reconsider?
It's an action item.
Recommended action that the Board of Education
Good.
accept Mid-City Office Products copy paper bid
Yeah,
for 2021.
I was joking, I'm sorry.
No.
So, second,
Nice. Okay. Roll call.
David Seymour,
Yeah.
Jeff Albrin,
yes.
Smith McDavid,
Yes.
Sarah Moses,
Yes.
Victoria Newport,
Yes.
Jeremy Olson,
Yep.
Valerie Pena Hernandez.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy.
Good job, Cindy.
Thanks, Cindy.
Next is a full cleaning proposal by Ms. Tammy Carson.
Good evening. What has been put forth in the board packet tonight is a proposal regarding a change back to full cleaning. 5 years ago, decisions were made by administration and the board to adjust our cleaning schedule to a modified cleaning, which was an every other night cleaning of general classrooms and general offices. And it was due to budget constraints, and we were looking to save potentially $250,000 to $300,000 a year. And we were able to do that over the last 5 years. But as we're looking at all the changing conditions, and everyone is looking at how we're going to be returning to school this fall and what changes we need to put in place, one of those is looking to go back to a full cleaning schedule. I did reach out to Cindy Graves at the County Health Department, and she definitely agrees and is in strong support of going back to a full cleaning schedule. What that does is obviously increase our costs, our labor costs, so that we would be cleaning all of our buildings, as well as the chemical costs, because we'd be using more chemicals and equipment. And with that, there is a price tag of approximately $165,000 a year of increased salary, benefits, and chemical costs. Now, with this presentation, there is another side piece that I do need the board to be aware of that will be coming at a later date. And the full cleaning, the adjustment to a full cleaning schedule does not impact the need to have a disinfecting schedule. One of the protocols we have to get back into place is a disinfecting plan under the current conditions that we're in, and we're still looking for some additional guidance with that. That plan, when we've looked at what that could cost, ranges anything from $15,000 a month on the low end to such as $250,000 a month. And obviously that is an unreachable price that we won't be able to do. But if we were looking to do a full disinfect of the entire buildings every single night, it has a pretty hefty price tag. And then obviously there's things in the middle. So our team is working on that, and that will be coming forward at a later date. But I do need the board to be aware that beyond the full cleaning plan that I'm putting forth tonight, that other piece will be coming forth at a later time, which has additional costs to it. We're hoping that could be potentially funded with the CARES Act. If again, it's going to have to be spread out among many different departments and needs of the district, but facilities and cleaning and disinfecting could be one of those for that disinfecting plan.
So Tammy, I'm not entirely sure where we're at here. Are we talking a contingency for return to school? Surely at this point, we don't need to do anything other than a low maintenance right now with no students in there. I know you were going to do some work in the schools, that you had some plans for that, but are we talking about a couple of different or 2 or 3 different contingency plans for what we might have to do if we're returning children to school?
Well, the full cleaning plan is being put forth in front of you tonight for consideration to bring back next meeting. That would be under the assumption when students do return to school, to our buildings, that we would be back on a full cleaning schedule. And again, there would have to be a disinfecting piece at a time. What we're doing right now in the summer is just our standard summer clean that we do every summer from top to bottom, as well as the standard upkeep and maintenance and painting and repairs that we do every summer. That's going to continue, and that's going to be done regardless of students returning this fall.
Right. I'm curious, why do we feel like we got to make this decision in 2 weeks?
Well, it's a staffing issue.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear
The question was, why do we have to make this decision now, Tammy?
Oh, I can explain that. To be able to do this, there's a lot of different scheduling changes that have to take place in regards to switching to a full cleaning schedule versus the modified. We will have to do some reassignments of staff to other buildings or shifts, as well as post a number of positions that our union members can apply for first. And then it creates a domino effect. For example, a 4-hour person may apply for a 6, and then that 4 hours open, or an 8-hour position, or even one in another building. And that does take time to get all of those postings and interviews and people moved around, and then post to the public. Because we are going to have to go outside to fill all of the hours that we're adding on. And to do that, put them in here, and again, this is all under the consideration that the students are coming back to our buildings. And we have to make sure that we're properly staffed and trained on day one, because with the current staffing level, there's absolutely no way I can, on day one of the students being here, be able to do a full cleaning schedule that's being proposed.
Well, I normally watch you and say, great, fabulous. I've been here for 3 years. I haven't really second guessed the thing that you've done. This time, I would, if I'm a betting man, I got it, my point at this, I don't bet, but my guess at this point is it's 50-50 at best that we're going back in the fall. It seems like gearing up for it at a 50-50, that's just me. Other people might have some other way of viewing it, but given where we're at and the trajectory we're on, I don't know. I mean, it seems a lot to gear up for something that may or may not happen. I know we have to do it.
But regardless if we come back in the fall or the students are back months in or weeks in, when that time happens, we need to be prepared. We can design this in a way that we do everything in preparation for this and get the postings and people shifted around, but the effective date of this happening and these hires can be at a later date. But everything has to be in place so that we are ready. We're gonna have some weeks of notice to know if we are or not returning with students in the fall. We're not gonna be told the day before school starts, obviously. So in that, we will know some weeks or whatever it is ahead of time that, yes, this is a go, and yes, these staff members that we have talked to about these reassignments and changes will need to take place.
Yes.
Any other questions?
Cindy, are you still there? Ms. Carpenter?
You're muted.
Yep, I didn't have my mic on.
Okay, so some quick math in my head, there's what, 1,292 school districts, I don't know, that's probably gonna be high schools.
800 and some districts.
Okay, I'm sorry, 1,200 high schools, I think it's 1,292 high schools, but I'm just doing some quick math. If every school district went through this, I mean, we're talking, what, $500 million bucks? That seems like a lot of money out of a lot of budgets. And if the state is in limbo over our 30%, potentially, that's a little concerning. Is there any like federal money or anything coming for this sort of thing? I mean, I can't believe the state would demand all these sorts of procedures without some sort of a financial plan for it, because that's a huge number.
Well, we talked a little bit about the CARES Act, and those are federal dollars that are coming our way, and that's probably more the types of things in terms of cleaning that would qualify to that is probably what Tammy was talking about, the additional cost for the disinfecting, the sanitizing, something above and beyond just your day-to-day cleaning.
Huge.
Those types of costs.
Okay.
Now, in terms of what Tammy's looking at, it's really going back to a full cleaning schedule, something that she was actually looking at, and we were looking at even before COVID had hit, that this was potentially something we would want to do to get the classrooms clean every night rather than every other night. And I don't want it to be, we've been cleaning classrooms. Classrooms have been getting clean, bathrooms have been getting clean, everything, the buildings have been getting maintained and clean. It's just when we were, I think it was about 4 or 5 years back, looking at budget reductions, this was a way to do that. And now we're at that point that, it's time to look at the full cleaning schedule again. It just so happens it's coming right now at the same time that COVID is hitting and making it a situation where we may want to do it sooner rather than later.
Not every district is on a modified cleaning schedule. I mean, some districts do a full cleaning schedule already.
Right.
Yeah.
In fact, probably
$400,000.
more than, I would say more than not, are on a full cleaning schedule, not modified.
Was this already in the budget that we reviewed, the last one? In terms of your projection, 400 grand roughly? Or is this new?
The full cleaning schedule?
Yeah.
No, it was not.
Any other questions? Consensus to bring this back?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Tammy.
you.
Thanks both of you.
Yep. Okay. Next subject is recommendation of revisions to Board of Education policies. First reading, Jamie Clayton.
I believe it was May 11th, I had shared a board memo with the latest Press Plus policy recommended updates, board policy updates. And this one was fairly light or very light compared to the previous one. And most of the policies, if you read through, were some slight updates in language. Really no substantial policy changes that I think the board as a whole needs to discuss. A couple of them were in regards to, again, the pandemic and the grading and promotion and the impact, and we'd already discussed that and passed a policy at a previous meeting. So, and then there were, I believe, 5 policies that were up for the 5-year review. Payment procedures, gifting to the district, student rights, responsibilities, student fundraising activities. All of those have been shared with you both in the board packet and the board preview that I'd shared back around May 11th. So if you do have specific questions, be sure to contact me before our next meeting because they'll be up for action or an adoption.
Any questions?
Most of those seem pro forma. I mean, they're didn't seem to be any changes of substance within those,
No.
that I read. Thank you.
And most of the time, these are again in response to legal changes, statutory changes that then slightly affect school code, but most of the time, there's like cross-reference policies that change as a result of another policy change. But again, nothing substantial in this batch.
Okay, so consent to bring this back?
Yes.
Sure. 3 of us, consent? Okay, the meeting will be adjourned.
Thank you.
What do I have to do? Oh, motion?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye. Bye, Brady Bunch. See you guys. Thank you.